Hey guys, what's happening? Welcome to another edition of Speak Up or Shut Up right here on social media. I'm your host, Devin Sears. I'm going to be keeping you company for a little bit. And there's a lot we have to talk about. But today, on today's episode, I want to talk a little bit about Linden. Where we were, where we are, and where we're likely to go as a people. But today I'm going to be your tutor. This is History 101 and I'm your lecturer, Devin Sears. Alright, so let's start back. Let's take you a little bit back to 1900s. And during the 1900s, Linden as we know it did not exist. It was forested. It was a forested area. Lots and lots of bush. Until 1914 when George Bain Mackenzie came in search of bauxite. And yep, did he found a lot of bauxite. But 2 years after, that would be 1916, the company Demba was established, which saw a whole bunch of persons coming from Quarantine, Berbice, Essequibo, and even throughout the Caribbean to seek employment. And bauxite was the thing of the day, I must tell you. And the company in itself provided a lot of services to the entire Mackenzie. By the way, Mackenzie was named after George Bain Mackenzie, the founder of Linden. Alright, so as time progressed, we saw the company developing, doing lots and lots of great things, not only for Linden itself, but the entire country. At one point in time, the bauxite contributed up to 12% to the country's GDP, and that was really good. And employment skyrocketing all the way up to 6,000. But with all of that money and contribution turning over, we saw a separation of classes actually. You have those in Wismar who were trying to seek employment or maybe trying to settle, and then you have Mackenzie, which is somewhat of the bourgeois type of people. Even on Mackenzie shore, there are some parts of that you were not permitted to go freely unless you had an invitation. Places like Watuka and Richmond Hill and Fraser's and those areas where the Caucasian people, those are the general managers and so forth, lived. Alright, but as the global decline for bauxite or the need for bauxite declined, we saw the company going through several changes of retrenchment and of course changing of ownership and management and all of that. Back in the early 2000s, in fact, Omai, which owned the company then, sold it out to now the Chinese, Bosai Minerals Guyana Inc. And they would have done several things. In fact, you have an employment rate now of maybe under 500, but you see the power generation plant in place. You have modernized equipment being used to extract bauxite and process it and so forth, but still the company in itself is not doing that well because the global demand for bauxite is not there, especially since Guyana is, or Linden as a matter of fact, is producing top grade bauxite. But then you can buy the lesser grade bauxite from places like Africa and Ghana and so forth. So the company, the market is not really there. So the things that used to happen way back in the days, like maintaining the streets and of course the thoroughfares and debauching and generally the enhancement of the aesthetics in Linden is not there anymore. But Linden has always been known as the bauxite mining town, but somehow we have not lost that connection with bauxite. And really and truly that worries me, because in any business, if you realize that you're not making a profit or this particular product is not doing that well, you're likely to gravitate to other things. But unfortunately, I don't believe that we as a people have managed well in terms of that transition. Bauxite is failing in Linden, and as a result we have to look at other economic means to generate money. So what you find is that those persons who were laid off, those families that were laid off from the bauxite mining company, eventually moved and gravitated towards more commercial and entrepreneurship and stuff like that. Started selling, started getting into business, investing in cars and getting taxi service and so forth. But what you find is that you have too much of that even at this stage. So there's not one service that can prosper really well because several persons are doing it. Let's say today I decide to go and open up a shop to sell a little bit of greens and so on. Alright, then if I'm doing well, you might find somebody else coming and doing the same thing, and now we have a shared market, and a third person is going to come, and that profit is not there, that profit margin is not there. Alright, if you look at the taxi service and even the bus service, there are several buses on the road, several cars on the road, and really not a few can benefit. All is benefiting, but to what extent? Alright, but generally we have gravitated towards that end, and really still the economics in Linden is not that sustained. But what can we really do in this time? Persons are complaining that they don't have enough money to do what they want to do, but really it's common sense. We have to look at other means, structured means, and this is where the administration of the region comes in. Agriculture. When you look at agriculture in our community, most of our food, I would say about 80% or maybe even more, we get it from outside of our region, even though we can produce it right here. Let's look at it. Chicken, most of it we get from outside our region, even though we have various chicken farmers and so forth, and even cattle ranches here in this community. They just need to be established and structured, and find a way to take that product to our market. We have the farmers in West Watuka who are doing a fantastic job. We need to create policies whereby we encourage that. Let's create a buy local scheme or so on. I'm going to tell you a little bit about that sometime on another program and how it can really work. But generally in Linden there's a cry for help, and even through the political period of 1992 to now, as a matter of fact, 1992 to now, we find that Linden has not grabbed its footing since the PNC came out of office, and it seemed as if Linden was somewhat marginalized throughout that entire period, because we saw development in other regions, but not much in this region. That says something. But really, development is not only infrastructure and road, it has to do with your mind as well. It has to do with your mind. As a people, as long as we want progress, we will get progress with determination and of course our minds. Our entire mindset needs to change from being dependent to being independent. I believe that somewhere along the line we got confused between those two. I'm not saying yes, you might be independent in terms of paying your own bills and looking after that, but we're dependent in a sense that we blame the government for whatever happens to us. Yes, they're an influential body and they can invest in us, but also we can invest in ourselves. That's why I say what I said in terms of our minds. If we want to see progress, it starts in our mind and then it comes out into action or physical. Alright? If we want to go clean the street and we realize that the government is not doing it to us or the local authorities is not doing it for us, what would it take for us to get our neighbors or cousins or friends, hey, we're going to go clean the street? That's the sort of mental thinking I'm talking about. We see that Linden, over the last couple of years, the alcoholic companies have generated billions of dollars. Just last year alone, Banks Age generated here in Linden, the Region 10, over $1 billion in sales, and a large amount of that came to the compliments of alcoholic beverages. That says that we have a problem. It's not that our economy is doing well. That means that it's either we're fighting depression or something of the sort. Now, where is Linden going to be in the future? As of 2015, we saw the Partnership for National Unity Alliance for Change going into government. They would have run a pilot project based on feasibility studies and trying to find avenues of possible investment and infrastructure work in Linden. This was the first of its kind for the entire country, and that model will be trickled down to other regions so you can ensure proper development. In 2016, as I mentioned in the previous episode, that local government elections is in place. So you'll find direct leadership will be coming from the community, and those communities will be represented well at the municipalities. Fair enough. Where exactly are we going? We know Linden is a stronghold for APNU ALC. fair enough. If by chance, and when by chance, or let me say if by chance, we don't know what the results would be in local government elections, but if by chance a Partnership for National Unity Alliance for Change goes into there, well then that means there will be direct influence from the government in terms of ensuring that proper work is done in the various communities. In order for Linden to move forward, we need major investments. And the local authorities will definitely have to put systems in place to encourage those major investments. I always believe that one of the greatest investments that can happen in Linden at this stage is investment in ICT and communications. Why ICT and communications? You have the fiber optic cable which run through Linden. Yes, there's still some work that needs to be done, but you have over 35,000 people living in Linden of itself. About 65% of those are between the ages of, let's say, 15 and 35. We have a good educational system here. The Linden Technical Institute, for one, have a wonderful computer science program that you should definitely be a part of. We have good education, and with that, you have good students who are coming out, and therefore you can provide employment for them. ICT definitely is the way to go. If Qualfund can come and establish a campus here in Linden, it will do extremely well. Similarly with Toucan Call Center, which no longer exists, you still have about 85 to 90 persons who are still unemployed. As a result of that, they can be employed at that campus. We have so much sand we can build 1 million houses. Let's do something with the sand. A glass factory would not be bad. We have the ores from the bauxite and stuff like that. We can make blocks. That's a possible investment. When you talk about recycling, even though it was tried in the past with garbage coming, I remember that story, garbage coming and being backfilled in some of the minor areas here in Linden. We can look to establish a recycling plant for the entire country. Not maybe in Linden, maybe on the Linden-Suzac Highway or so on. A recycling plant for tins, for glass and plastic. And that definitely will ease all the littering and everything. So we can look at sanitation there. And there are several investments when it comes to agriculture and farming. We can feed ourselves. And with that in place, I believe we can come out of this economic depression that we are in. As it is right now, Linden and families are depending on remittance from overseas. That is not how Linden should be. And we have to do something about it. We definitely have to do something about it, and it starts with you. Nobody can bring you out of the situation that you're in other than God and of course yourself. You have to want that change. You need to own that change. And with that being said, we definitely will be a town of the future and a model that others can follow. When you talk about the gateway to the interior, let's own up to that. Let's ensure that traffic don't only just pass through Linden, but they stay here too. They enjoy some of what we have. When you think about agriculture, tourism, aquaculture and all these things, Linden has something of substance to offer. In terms of the entertainment aspect of things, we can benefit tremendously because for 20 years we've been running Linden Town Week. That is a Linden's product. And for 20 years there have not been any serious crime.